U novom serijalu Kuhinje glavna jela ćemo posluživati i u formi razgovora dva učesnika koji imaju neke dodirne tačke. Ovo je intervju-razgovor gdje je domaćin Namik Kabil, a gost Aleksandar Payne. Ispitivali su jedan drugog o životu, filmu, muzici na filmu i u životu, hrani.
So tell me about Parajanov film.
Parajanov movie. Now, are you serious? You're asking me? Okay, so he did the movie. It was 1972, The Colors of Pomegranate, and committee didn't approve it. They called him for questioning and asked him to kind of re-edit the movie. They didn't understand what the movie was about, but the clerical part of it was kind of disturbing to them because they're kind of secular.
What do you mean by clerical?
Okay, yeah, religious part. And he said, I'm not going to change it. He's a Armenian. He was making it in Georgia. He's a half Armenian, half Jewish. Half Armenian, half Jewish. And he said, I'm Sergei Parajanov,
Yes.
gay,
Yes.
Russian Jewish, and anti-Soviet. They put him anti-Soviet. They put him in jail for 5 years. Okay, I have a question for you. Yeah. Okay. You said 2 days ago that you consider yourself, in a way, an old-fashioned filmmaker. You don't remember it?
Yes, I remember.
Did somebody actually ask you that did somebody actually suggest that you're old-fashioned? They were kind of attacking you because your films are...
No, I've never had an attack for that, but I just think the way I make films and the films that I use as models are generally older films. And in my MO too, you know, the way I make a film is very much an old-fashioned style.
And do you consider yourself a nostalgic person? Do you kind of have nostalgia that's kind of important driving force in your life?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, we all have some degree of nostalgia, of course, but I actually find many, in terms of film, if we're talking about film, many older films much more contemporary and interesting and urgent than new films. Newer films are made in a much more boring and dated style that's old-fashioned in a different way. It's not, I mean, you look at Italian films from the early 1960s where formally each new film is giving a new idea of what a film can be. And that's the world I want to be living. I'm not nostalgic for that world. It still seems new and fresh to me.
They kind of, their cinema lost the power.
But it's not, I mean, obviously, yes. Periods of great cinema or of great art are born in some kind of historical necessity. We know that to be true, and certainly neorealism comes from a very peculiar reality and then influenced French New Wave, which then influences Hollywood New Cinema and all that. But just economic explanation is not for me enough, because obviously the United States has had a powerful economy for a long time, but that doesn't entirely explain the golden age of cinema of the 1970s, which is also a big influence on me.
Yeah, but also, as you know, the 70s movies also connected directly or indirectly to the Vietnam War. So there was a struggle again, which wasn't a kind of struggle, typical struggle of today's person in the West kind of developed world.
I agree, but maybe I was taking too literally what you were saying about economic explanations. But that's true, and in fact, there are times, like in Italy in the 50s, France in the 60s, US in the 70s, where you need to tear down existing structures and kind of start fresh and say, enough of these lies, what's the truth? And I think we definitely need that today. As a child, I studied music. I studied cello and piano, and I liked music very much.
I want to ask you something about your movies. I noticed, I lived in the States at that point when Pulp Fiction came out.
Where did you live?
I lived in Los Angeles. I drove taxi in LA for a few years and studied cinema. I was a refugee. I remember after the Pulp Fiction era, there were a lot of movies that came out that kind of tried to copy Tarantino's use of music. And the music basically was very often misused or overused. I hear and see a lot of music in your movies, but doesn't come across as an obtrusive. You said you like more scores than songs.
Yeah, and also I'm not influenced by Tarantino films at all. It's almost like Tarantino for me in the 90s was what Star Wars was for my generation in the 70s, which is big phenomenon, everyone influenced, everyone thinks about it, and I don't care at all about it. I mean, when I saw Star Wars at 15, I think I forgot it the next day. Same thing with I like Jackie Brown, that's a good movie. But the other ones, it's like, it's not my style at all. Again, for lessons in using music in film, I tend to watch Italian films. I like Piero Umiliani and Ennio Morricone and Nino Rota, and some of the classical American. Sure. But, you know, and another movie, too, that I've watched, it's funny where influences can come, though, like you talk about use of songs in movies, and I think, obviously, The Graduate was that first brilliant use of contemporary songs, and then in McCabe and Mrs. Miller, using Leonard Cohen songs was extremely good and extremely interesting. More recently, an influence on me for Election was Casino, because how songs are used both in Goodfellas and Casino is also new, used in a new way, and I found that very influential. If not to copy, at least to give ideas. It's Sergio Leone saying that music is 40% of cinema.
I read that you like Viridiana very much. I do. And Seven Samurais.
By the way, Viridiana, a movie with, I think, almost no music in it.
That's right. I mean, it's all relative. You know, when Kubrick says that the montage or editing is the only property that cinema developed, invented, because everything else existed in some different way before the cinema. But then when you watch Charlie Chaplin, he has a movie in one shot and it works perfectly.
But again, I still think you can apply that idea of montage to what Chaplin is doing. I mean, his films are still edited very well, even if the mise-en-scène is more important than the montage.
You know, I'm talking, there are movies, little short movies like A Boxer that are not very, I mean, the editing is kind of secondary kind of value of it.
I'm sorry, but you can't discount how montage works in the ending of City Lights to create that unique effect, which is one of the greatest achievements, I think, not just in cinema, but in all of art, is that ending of City Lights.
I also read you like Seven Samurais, and you saw it 48 times.
I didn't say 48, but
there was
at least 40.
There are kind of critiques that say that Kurosawa is not the best filmmaker, Japanese filmmaker. It's just the most westernized filmmaker. I don't agree with that.
That's an idiotic comment. Maybe now Michael Bay is considered the most American of filmmakers. Does that make him a better filmmaker than Jim Jarmusch or something? You know, what am I supposed to make of that comment?
Have you seen Broken Flowers?
No, I hear it's fun.
I didn't like it. I didn't like it because I thought it was an invented drama. Invented in terms of the motivation for the drama. You said the other day your acting is documentary style. What does that mean?
Not acting.
The way you direct actors.
Well, the question that I got in that Q&A was, how do you, some of your acting seems, not mine, but of the characters in the film, seems very authentic, and how do you achieve that effect? And I then said that I have in many aspects I think a documentary approach to fiction filmmaking, one of which is in the acting style, and even, I didn't mention this in the Q&A, but even in the casting, because even though I have big stars in some of my films, a lot of the other actors are non-professional actors, or even non-actors, really picked up off the street. Shivapiche, I had it for lunch today.
But seriously, I mean, honestly, do you like them or you don't like it?
No, I do. I like everything except beets. How do you call beets? Svekla. Yeah, I don't like Svekla. Yeah, I like everything else.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.